believe that makes it 10:30 on the West Coast out there. Is that right, Sarah?
We're at 10:30 here.
10:30. It's still morning
I do
times
see
out
we
there.
have some Hawaii friends too, so it's
Hawaii.
even earlier for them.
Yeah, oh my gosh. Good morning to our friends in Hawaii. Hello, everyone. Welcome in. My name is Spencer Conover. I am the Chief Operating Officer for the National Animal Care and Control Association. I'm joined today by the incredible Sarah Hawk. She is the Executive Director of Joint Animal Services in the state of Washington, and Angela Medina. She is the Director of Volusia County Animal Services in northeastern Florida. They are both members of the board of directors of the National Animal Care and Control Association. And we're here today to talk about AI. It's a word that's been thrown around a ton. We're really excited to get talking about AI, talk about what it can do, how it can help you all, some of the scary things about AI. Your cameras are welcome. If you want to come off, you're more than welcome to turn your cameras on. Share your screen when it's helpful. If you're joining from a truck, we totally get it. Thank you to our animal control officers that are joining us from the field. We know, as I know, better than most. Sometimes you have that 20 minutes or 30 minutes you can spare in between calls. We appreciate you all joining us. Want to make sure if you do have questions today, this is going to be a very, very interactive conversation. Please make sure you put those questions either in the chat or in the Q&A section. I'm going to be monitoring that pretty closely. We want to make sure we get to all of your questions. I know we had some questions submitted ahead of time. We got some data we're going to analyze for you all that was submitted on a survey ahead of time. And these ladies have some incredible, incredible features to show you all. If we could start off just real quick in the chat, let us know where you're listening in from today, and if it is your first time joining Leading Conversations, because we know we have some new faces. So thank you to everybody who's joining us. So put where you're from in the chat, where you're joining us from, and then if it is your first time joining us here with NACA and the Leading Conversations meeting. We're excited to meet everybody today. Maryland, welcome Albuquerque, Washington. Exciting stuff all around the country. Manchester, New Hampshire, the Yukon, Texas, Canada. Welcome, Canada. Katie from Canada. Ohio's in the house. Moab. Welcome, David. Used to work in Salt Lake City. Aloha, Brandy from lovely Honolulu. NACA will be seeing Honolulu in January for some work with the Hawaii Humane Society. Pretty excited about that. Louisiana's in the house. South Carolina, California, more Washington, Greenboro, North Carolina, Havasu in Arizona, Brazil. Welcome, Brazil. And then Colorado. Welcome, Colorado. I lived in Aurora for a couple of years. New Mexico as well. Thank you, everyone who's joining us. We really appreciate it. We're going to go ahead and I'm going to hand it over. I will be monitoring that Q&A really closely, really monitoring the chat really closely. If you have any questions, we have the next 60 minutes. We want to make sure we get to it. But until no further ado, we'll kick it off to Sarah and Angela.
Awesome, guys. Thank you so much for joining us. We're here to talk about something that's really state of the art, which is, of course, AI. And I did want to kick it off that it is generative AI that we're really talking about closely lately, because AI, artificial intelligence, actually began in the 1950s. Then we kind of began, just for a little history, artificial intelligence, machine learning became after that, deep learning after that in 2010s, and generative AI 2020s. So that means that this recent AI and these recent conversations are because it is learning from us. So a lot of these that we're going over are called LLMs. If you've heard of ChatGPT, you've heard of Claude, you've heard of Google Gemini. These are things that are going to be learning based off of what you're inputting. So it's not like they understand the world of animal welfare, but it can research a lot of information online very quickly. And with that information, it could start to learn based on what you're inputting into it. Now, it is taking everybody's information. So, if you have a bunch of animal control officers utilizing this, then it might learn even more over time, just more based off of all of that input. But today we had a Excel spreadsheet sent to us. It was your Zoom feedback, and just wanted to show you how we could use that. Me and Sarah have not looked at this before yet, but we wanted to show you just kind of what data and what information we could pull on that. So I'm just going to start sharing my screen real quick. Let's go here. So what we have over here is the event feedback. So this is exactly the poll that was done. I'm just going to pull it over.
Angela, your
Not quite
screen isn't
sharing
showing.
yet.
Oh, no. Okay. Let me see here. Now can
There
you
you
see?
go.
Perfect.
There we go.
So we took the event feedback from over here that I had saved, just dragged and dropped. We're using ChatGPT for this one. And I'm saying utilizing the attach spreadsheet, please let me know the top information needed by viewers, we'll say, and what trends you can pull. Simple enough. Basic data analysis. So it might take a few minutes, but obviously this might be a major data set. It might be how many people did we get back from this? I think it was a little over
About
60.
40, 40, I think.
49.
40.
Well, it
Yeah,
was almost 50, so just a little under half, which is also just for everybody's awareness, is a really great survey response. So thank you all for responding. It's
yeah, thank
helpful.
you very much. We wanted to use it in real time because, like I said, me and Sarah wanted to design this more oriented towards what you guys wanted to see and what you guys wanted to learn. So now, just within that minute, probably, it's designed the frequency of use. It could tell me that about 46% of you, almost half of you, have never used it. Around the next one would be daily or once a week, and even fewer once a month. So I do like to see that, a quarter of you are already using it daily. Um, Comfortability, we could probably improve there. That's the entire reason why we're joining today. So comfort level 2.25 out of 5. So it does a variety of analysis as we've just put this information in. And I would say that one of the things that I wanted to look at overall trends, there's a clear opportunity for training. There's low comfort levels, but there's a lot of strong interest. Documentation, reporting, and policy is a very large amount of what you guys wanted to learn from us. So even gives us little prompts for the future. So I'm going to stop sharing real quick.
Quick question about that, Angela and Sarah. Feel
Yeah,
free to chime in too. I know some of the questions might be, is that a paid version of ChatGPT, or are there paid versions of these different softwares? And is there availability for free software as well?
absolutely. So that one is my paid version of ChatGPT. However, it does allow you to do a certain amount up to, I think, at least 10 requests per day. So if you are going over a really good amount of information, you have a really strong data set and you need it to go, okay, here's my annual information. I need to get a budget increase in this area. Can you help me design a pitch that focuses on the highlights of the work that we've done that my county commissioners are going to understand best? Or let me, reframe, why do I need another ACO on my team? Utilize all of my data previously, utilize all of our call logs, our response times, et cetera, and help me create a pitch that would be oriented towards these individuals. I have also used it, and I've used it to challenge my thinking. I think that's one of the foundational things is we're not trying to take away human thought. We're trying to amplify it with AI. It should never be something that we're using so much as a crutch that we're not taking our professional expertise in it. It should just be used to help us use our brains even more.
Mhm.
They're great interns. They're not great employees. So I would say they're great for assisting. They're not great for taking over jobs. And I don't see a world where, AI is going to be taking over those jobs, but it can help automate a lot of things. It could help take the strain off. And I think that's the entire point of all of the foundation behind AI. Other things that we've used to challenge our thinking, we're using Claude. Different ones have different kinds of things that really help. Like Sarah loves to use Gamma for presentations. She puts all the information in, it'll design a whole presentation with the images and everything. So if presentation design is not your repertoire, that is a great one. But I think it's really important to also stay aligned with one or two or maybe three.
Mhm.
Don't overburden yourself by jumping from Google Gemini to Claude to ChatGPT and multiple learning language models or LLMs because it can only learn what you put into that one.
We're not
So
running out
you
and getting
start
50
and
paid
yeah,
prescriptions to 50 paid
yeah,
subscriptions to 50 different AIs, huh?
Well, and
exactly.
I would say too, like, figure out which ones work best for you. And like, I have a paid subscription to Gamma because I use it so much for presentations, but I don't have a paid subscription to ChatGPT. I do have a login so that it keeps track of everything that I input, so it is still learning from anything that I do, but I don't necessarily use it enough in my everyday life that I feel like I need a paid subscription at this point. That could change, but most of these, you do get a certain amount of free interactions before you have to pay. And so I think that's really important for us that are on limited resources to just keep in mind, like, it's not always an upfront you have to pay to utilize this model. The whole point is they want you to interact with it and love it enough that you might think about having a subscription.
Yeah. I think, Sarah, you probably have our
Is
next
that me?
topic.
Okay. So I wanted to talk about one of the things that I really love AI for is from a leadership perspective or even a supervisor's perspective, it can really help with decision making and efficiency. And when I say decision making, I don't mean decisions that impact my employees like health and well-being. I'm not putting in whether or not I should eliminate a job, right? Like I'm talking about using it for staffing and workplace planning or to help create schedules and optimal staffing levels for when we have to be open and the number of hours that we are servicing our community. It's really also helpful for case management, inputting that data to help either help you prioritize stuff for the day. What Angela and I both love about it is the heat maps that you can actually create from your caseload. So you can, export your information from your shelter management or your reporting software and upload it to some of the programming to actually help you provide heat maps and ask it questions of like, what zip codes are we having the most bites? And Angela made a good point when we were talking about it's not just necessarily utilizing it so you have more officers in that area because of that heat map, but what are you doing educationally to help prevent those instances from happening? So bites, for example, maybe you want to start doing more in-school presentations about safety around pets. There's so many things that we could be doing that isn't necessarily doing our job for us, but making our life easier. We all know how hard it is, like creating SOPs or updating our SOPs, being able to use AI to help lay those things out, upload what you have, and then help you create something new that at least gives you a base of something to start from. It's not perfect. Even in my Gamma presentations, there'll be some weird one-off things that I need to go back and fix. Um, but it's great. Like I'm a great editor. I sometimes have a hard time getting started in being the creator in things. But if I have something to work from, that in and of itself is such a time saver rather than me sitting for 6 hours trying to create an SOP versus the hour that I need to edit something and get a really good content of it. Angela, do you have, I know we've talked about some amazing things that we utilize, and I know you've really, really implemented it with your officers, if you want to give a couple of really amazing examples.
Yeah, I've been utilizing it a lot more heavily lately. I think we're all familiar with being short-staffed. I think it's very hard to incorporate training. One of the cool things that I found recently is kind of a VR type situation or a automated video. A lot of police use VR for ongoing trainings, and de-escalation is one. So you can actually start putting into AI and having your officers read just like a you're seeing me right now work through a webcam with that AI generation, and it can say, here's the situation. You have a hostile individual. They're not wanting to give the dog up, even though it just attacked another dog, et cetera, et cetera. And I can input the scenario that I want my officers to practice going over, especially if it's something that I found to be a consistent issue. And after the officer handles that scenario, it'll actually interpret that. It'll tell them what they did really well at and what they still need to continue working on and give tips. So I think helping your officers when you don't have time to train and you don't maybe even have the professional expertise, like say you don't have a person that could go to verbal judo, like I did during Police Academy, which is a very specific class on de-escalation, they can actually work on practicing, especially because a lot of our officers sometimes learn on the fly when people are getting very hostile in an unsafe situation. I'd rather them be in a comfortable place, practice that, and get very automated with that. So we've definitely used it for that. Another great one is not all of our officers are very comfortable public speaking, but sometimes we have to be on the stand. So sometimes we have to present in court, and that's something that they have the ability to practice. They could either do the video again with a VR type situation or just kind of a webcam sort of situation, depending on the platform you utilize. But you can kind of practice or even just put into ChatGPT, what questions, given this scenario, do you think I'm going to be cross-examined with? And I want it to actually try to cross-examine me as if you are the defense attorney in this situation. Now, key thing here is I'm not putting my full report with details, of the investigation. We have our limitations. There are things that we don't want as public record. So very personal information. If you're in leadership, sensitive personnel information. Should I fire this person or not? I think, Sarah, you laid into that a little bit. ChatGPT should not be making those decisions for you, but it could kind of go over my officers and who has the highest call volume, who might, what are the different trends. But if it's different call volume, do I have a person who's just performing lower, or do I have them in a zone that's actually receiving less calls? What if I need to redesign my zones based off of a heat map because of the volume of calls that I'm getting? Maybe my zones aren't set up right for us to get an officer over there as soon as possible. So I think utilizing it in ways that challenge us, that help us go off of data is very helpful. I understand that ChatGPT and all AI can remove a lot of bias, and that is very helpful in our decisions. But there's also still the human component. Like I said, it should also not be doing things, and I have heard this before, of not putting all the medical and behavioral information of an animal and deciding euthanasia based off of that. That should be a person deciding that. That should be your expertise going in, because it is purely deciding based off of data that you input. And so we still want that to be people choosing those things. Yes, it can evaluate a kennel and how can I improve operations, or how can I make a pitch? Here's the background on this animal. How do I design a social media post that highlights its needs and gets it a home in the best way possible? So that might be a good one too.
I love the concept of training, and I'll never forget. It was actually a call I was on with Jerica, and we were previewing some AI technology, and they were talking about training for dispatch officers, and they were talking about the person can train to take calls with an AI agent, and they asked the person, "Hey, can I have your phone number?" and or can I have your name rather? And I'll never forget, like AI instinctually, you'd be like, "Oh, it's going to respond with, oh, my name is John Smith, and I live at," and the AI response was, "Well, why do you need my name?" Which is something that we encounter as officers every day, right? And you're like, "Oh my God." So it's like these are real life circumstances. As you both see AI develop and you're utilizing it more and more, do you as leaders, are you working AI into strategic planning, into future goals, into annual goals for team members? How are you guys kind of incorporating AI, not necessarily as an ancillary tool, but as something you're kind of incorporating into your organization?
No, that's a really great question, and I love it. There's so many base uses that you
Mm-hmm.
can even do that we really try to encourage our employees to utilize. Not even just like, and I'll get to the strategic component in a second, but like even simple things like Grammarly, which is technically an AI component where it reviews your spelling and makes grammar suggestions and even helps like make suggested language changes, right? Like utilizing Grammarly is a great function, I feel like, for all of my staff here, because especially in terms when we're dealing with animals as evidence in cases, um, nothing says we're more unprofessional than a report that we've submitted as part of a case that has numerous misspellings, right? Or like, um, is not outlined in a professional manner. And so, not even using ChatGPT, but even just using Grammarly, having that uploaded as a program on your computer, on your phone, tablets, you name it, and being able to help staff when they're inputting their behavior notes, when they're inputting medical notes, case reports for officers, and making sure that like these memos and different files that are getting put in sound professional. Everything is spelled appropriately. We're coming across as the subject matter experts that we truly are, and it's not inhibiting us from coming across unprofessional, especially when you're looking at a court case, right? And so just even small things like that, from a larger perspective, it's been really eye-opening for us to use it to analyze the data coming in so that we can predict um, increase in intake. That helped me do my budgeting. Like I inputted several years worth of intake and asked ChatGPT to help me analyze like what parts of my budget would need to go up with this increase in intake. What's the percentage I should work on increasing? Now, for example, like, did I take that verbatim? No. I used that data to really consider what is a realistic increase to my budget. What are things that I could advocate for? And I'm the one who also knows all of the jurisdictions that I contract with. I know what type of budget increase that they're going to be comfortable with versus one that we're going to have to argue for, right? And so it's really great to have this base and idea, and at least from a calculation standpoint, to be able to have some of this data to show. But it still takes that human component of analyzing things in the scope of what you know, your community, your elected officials, your team, and your community, right? Like all of that affects how we interpret that AI data and how we utilize it.
Yeah. I think for ours, we've definitely done SWOT. If anybody knows strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, threats, a SWOT analysis for your entire organization can be extremely helpful to see where you're at a little bit, to design strategically where you want to go and how you're going to get there. And it can go into literally what staff you have or what staff you still need. I've also had it help with pitches. If I think that I really need to, for example, get a mobile clinic, I think that's what the community needs. I don't think that they have transportation as a very core fundamental problem for them having access to veterinary services. And I think what we need is a mobile clinic. Then I might design a pitch, but then I'm going to have AI go over that pitch and I'm going to say, I want you to act as the county manager, an HR professional, and I want you to act as an accountant, etc., and evaluate my pitch and come up with one thing that you would want changed, or one area of opportunity, because I can't be all those people, but I know my audience. I know who I'm going to have to convince that this is absolutely necessary. And while it might make sense to me, it might not make sense to them. And if I could have something challenge my pitch a little bit better, it might make me more presentable and just confident in the room, even.
That's beautiful. I love that. And to think that this technology has the ability to be an HR person and an accountant and like thinking outside of that, right? Not just asking questions, but asking questions through the lens of who you're communicating with is beautiful. The technology is advancing, and there are people that are against that. We have people in our industry who have been doing this for 25, 30, 35 years, and no computer is going to take my job. And what do you think is a good way not only to bring those folks to the side of the future? Because let's face it, this is here to stay. It's not going anywhere. We're going to embrace it. It's whether or not we do it willingly or against our will. What do you think is a good way to bring those folks in? And what's a good, like, easy thing to do to get their feet wet as far as AI is concerned?
So I think I have been met with a lot of resistance. I
Mm-hmm.
created a really great PowerPoint to kind of have them try it out a little bit. And I think it's scary. I think it's as scary as, when social media made such a big, disruption, and how much that can do. It's a very intimidating thing. This version, generative AI, does a lot of learning, which is intimidating because it could sound and act, like you said, it could do things just like a human being because it's learning from us constantly based on what you're putting in. But I think the key thing would be to get them started by dipping their toes in with something that's very simple, something that's not a very big threat, and kind of just trying it out. I think encouraging them to try it out to see how it might simplify or how it might take their thought process to the next level. I might be at my capacity for work that day, and I might say, can you evaluate this, this report for any gaps? I think, was there anything that I missed here? Or if I have a presentation of some sort, can you bring this down to the fourth grade reading level? I need you to, especially for some of us that have been doing this a very long time, there's a lot of assumptions that what I'm talking about with ACO, TNR, all these other verbiages that we're very comfortable with. But when I talk about it to other people, maybe it's just not hitting because we didn't make it simpler. And I think it could kind of take that work. So I think it's also, you took huge amounts of data and just put it in there. Recently, we had a public records request, which I think a lot of people know and understand what that is. And it was 5 years worth of data. They wanted 5 years worth of data
An
of different
expensive public records
individuals.
request.
That's very expensive. Usually it's based on the amount of time. And part of that included with people's names, people who are exempt from it, police officers, animal control officers, attorneys, things like that would be exempt. So we had that list and we have the 5 years worth of data list. And we said, please cross examine this data and pull out anybody that would be on that list. And it did it in under 20 minutes.
Wow.
And so we were able to get even 5 years worth of data in 20 minutes. And I think when you provide that kind of evidence of the power of what it can do rather than one person who might miss something. And it's crucially important if you're talking about public records and I give a home address of a police officer, the ramifications of that are extremely high. So the fact that it wouldn't probably miss that, depending obviously on what you're putting in, saying if it has this name, I need it removed entirely. I think it helps remove human error as well.
You kind of brought up an interesting topic. The industry is extremely busy right now. Intake levels are extremely high. Call counts are extremely high. Um, Sarah, what do you think? What would you say to a frontline team member or even a field supervisor who's looking to get this implemented, who knows that this could be an advantage, but my folks are already spread thin. They don't have time to learn something new, right? How do we approach that?
I think a lot of it is the great examples like Angela talked about. I think it's talking to your team about like and listening to what they have to say in regards to I don't have time, right? What are you spending your time on, right? Let's talk about what is taking up the majority of your time and really taking that into consideration because I can guarantee you there's things that we could be doing um that actually like through AI would alleviate some of that burden, right? Even having a report template built, right? That a lot of us who have our ACOs in-house inside a shelter, um, we have the ability to insert templates or pull from to put into a case, to put into a memo, medical report. We have all of that ability. So why not utilize it to help create stuff so you just have to fill in the blank? Um, why not have it input what your calls are already that day that you just got handed?
Maybe.
Inputting that into chat gpt to really help like say hey these are your top priorities that you need to address today um and in some cases with more with some of these learning things and heat maps you can even there's some programs out there that will actually drive for you, right? So if you input all your cases that you need to go, it'll actually tell you the route that you need to take to be most efficient. So that way you're not zipping across to your county, right? Or your city, going 30 minutes to this call, 30 minutes here. But if it can actually tell you like, hey, here's the map that you need to drive today while hitting all of your calls, that to me feels like a much more efficient use of my officer's time.
And I've had officers in the past that spend, oh, I'm going to map out my day to be efficient. And then they spend the next hour to an hour and a half mapping out their day. It's like, wait a minute. You could have just driven to a call at that point, right? I think as we look at AI, the big question that we keeps coming up though is ethics, right? The ethics of AI. If we could kind of get into that conversation, start breaking that down, Sarah, what are you concerned about? What do you see? What should people really be on the lookout for?
I think, you know, could attest to this too. Like when we were going over this presentation and talking, the first question that came up when we were talking is somebody was like, "So would you use it to write your report?" And we literally at the same time went, "Oh no." Um, because, so here's the thing, we're not saying that it can't help you, that it can't make you sound more professional, but when it comes to cases, especially cases that you know are going to be referred for charges, are going to be part of a court, you want to make sure that it is your report, right? Like, just like any witness, it is, perjury. We want to make sure that it's our words under testament of the law, right? And when we start having AI mess with that, that's where it starts getting sticky,
Mhm.
right? Like we don't want to submit a report that was completely generated by AI because then it's not our report as an animal control officer. And so there are some concerns for me when it comes to that. Angela brought up the decision making via euthanasia. One from an optics perspective, I won't out the jurisdiction, but we recently, like here, it's budget season because we operate on a calendar year. And so all of our jurisdictions are under budget deliberations. And it was stated in a public meeting that this jurisdiction was operating under a deficit. And so they asked ChatGPT, they inserted their budget and asked where they could make cuts, and where like what programming that like they had to meet per code, and like what did those cuts look like. Well, we're talking about like furloughing people or layoffs in this sense, and they literally were like, hey, we had ChatGPT tell us. From an optics point of view, that's not great either, right? Like, how would you like to find out at a public meeting that ChatGPT told you that you didn't need that many people in your department? Um, that's from an optics standpoint, like there's humans attached to this data. And I think that's the one thing that we always have to remember is there's still a human component, right? Like it can assist us doing our jobs. Angela said it best. They're great interns. They're great at helping us collect that data, organizing it, giving us some place to start. But there are limitations because their humans are involved, right? Like we have to remember that when we're making these decisions and when we're analyzing it. And it's also not just humans, right? Animals, which is the main reason why we're here. And so dealing with living, breathing beings and decisions being made by a learning software isn't probably, for me, there's some ethics involved with that. It's great at giving me the data I need to make my decision, but not allow for it to make the decision for me.
And I mean, you'd mentioned human lives. There's an aspect of our industry too. We don't work in a bank. We don't sell insurance. There's animals involved too. Angela brings up a good point. How easy would it be to take a report out of Chameleon, shove it into ChatGPT, and say, should this animal live or die? But there's so much more to that, right? There's an animal at stake. There's human lives, human emotion, attachment to all of that, and I think that's so impactful. You had mentioned a couple times, and this is for either of you. You know, this technology is constantly learning, and that's how it provides what it provides. It's constantly learning. What aspect of privacy are we concerned about? And those of which that of like myself who have worked in the public sector for many years, there is no level of privacy. Everything is public record, right? There's no concern of that. But if you run a large humane society with a and you have a donor base, you have communications with private citizens, private community members, what is the concern over privacy?
I mean, I would agree that to some extent there is. And I would
Mm-hmm.
say, just like this is evolving, like we all had to, when social media became a thing, yes, I'm outing myself as being old, knowing that I was in the workforce when social media became a thing. But like nobody had policies surrounding that, right? Like nobody had policies in the workplace to address that. I remember attending a labor workshop where it was labor lawyers talking about how, like, whether or not you could hold somebody accountable for what they said or posted on social media, and like at what point could you or not. And I mean, that at that point was when I made the decision of like, I am not friends on social media with anybody that I work with, like, period. Like I will be friends with them after I leave, but not while I'm working with them. And I think it is. very important for those who are on the call today that are leaders or have influence over decision making. You should be thinking about what your policies are in terms of use of AI, right? Um, because I also think having guidelines in place early before, I mean, and I talk from like a municipal standpoint, governments are very quick to react about the data mining,
Mm-hmm.
right? And, an example I gave is I'm in Washington. The majority of jurisdictions here in Washington, as well as Washington State, have banned the use of TikTok, for example, as a social media use because of the concerns around data mining. So I think the quicker we are to have policies in place to demonstrate that we are protecting privacy, we're protecting certain data points of for what AI can be used for in the workplace, I think that'll be easier to then demonstrate to those in charge why we need to be able to keep access and that they don't just do a blanket firewall and we're like trying to utilize ChatGPT on our phones, our personal phones, because, we can't do it at work to utilize what's best. So I definitely think from an influencing standpoint, having SOPs and policies in place early rather than reacting once something has happened is going to be beneficial for everybody.
Angela, I'll turn to you. I want to make sure like there's some tangible, like this is what you should, and you can shake somebody by the shoulders and be like, use this, use AI for this. It's so simple. It like 2 to 3 things that you now use AI for that you would never go back. You would never do by hand or manually ever again.
Oh, SOPs, 100%.
Yeah.
I can describe what I want in ChatGPT or in Claude or in any other one, and I can describe what I'm doing or what I want my team to do, and I can say, put it in this format. So
Mm-hmm.
first, what I'll do is have a solid format, have what I like literally down to a Word document. Now, we have said that some of these platforms are better for downloadable content better than others. So for example, like ChatGPT, I think is a lot better than Claude and some of the others for downloading a Word document, a PDF, an Excel spreadsheet. It's just a lot better for those things. Now, Claude
Mm-hmm.
is a better writer.
Mm-hmm.
So, understanding the strengths and weaknesses of each one and probably then figuring out what you want to invest in as well is a key point. But SOPs in general are the bane of my existence because I get to open or get to rewrite and revamp those all the time. And especially as we have SOPs, even if you don't have ones for social media, it could create one immediately. Compare it to other agencies. Can you write me a social media SOP? And it's something that we just don't have a lot of time for, or maybe we don't have the kind of writing that is necessary for what is a standard operating procedure. If you're more of a creative writer, such as myself, I like a lot of marketing. I might be a lot longer winded, if you will, with my writing, and that doesn't make sense for an SOP.
Yeah.
So I might be able to put it all in there and then have it narrow it down what it needs.
I'll never forget. I was at a summit years and years and years ago, and it was like a multi-state summit. And the person that was running the summit got up in the front, and they were like, "Who here has more Chihuahuas than you know what to do with?" And like half the room's hands went up. And like, "Who here has room for Chihuahuas and get them adopted really, really quickly?" And the other half of the room lit up. So we have so often we go to these, we work with organizations, individual organizations, like, "How are your SOPs?" "Oh, we don't have any." Well, here's this tool. Here you go. Like if you are saying you don't have time to write SOPs, here's something you can do that's very, very simple. Come up with a template, very simple template. NACA can help you with that. We're more than happy to provide that and utilize this AI to create SOPs that are so needed for the organization. Sarah, what about you? I mean, you mentioned was it Gemma or Gamma?
Gamma.
Gamma.
So Gamma for me, it's a presentation AI presentation tool. So like I am literally the worst. I love doing presentations. I love talking to people, but trying to take what's in my brain and put it into a PowerPoint, I might as well be in like the fifth circle of hell. Like it is the worst for me. And so what's amazing with that is I can literally, take create an abstract, create an article that's talking about what I want to do, or if I already have something in place, like a report, I can upload that into Gamma and ask it to create a PowerPoint. And it designs the whole thing. It's not something generic that just has some bullets with some lines. It will create graphics and make everything individual, it will animate it. It will even go as far as to create photos for your presentation. Although, again, AI photography gets a little weird. Like you'll notice an ACO has like a sixth finger.
Why can't it do hands yet? It can do
I don't
hot mapping of
know.
everything, but it can't do hands.
It
Um,
doesn't do animal legs either.
yeah, it gets really weird and you have to be mindful for that. So usually I ask it to I like tell it that I'm going to upload my own photographs because I have a lot of really good stock material that we can pull from, and so there's really no need for it to generate stuff. But it saves me so much time. Like PowerPoints will take me hours to create simply because like I put it together, it's either way too much in one slide or not enough.
Mhm.
And this gets it just right. And then I can go through and tweak it and be like, well, I don't really like how that layout, that's not exactly what I want it to say. And you can fix it. And what's really amazing too, when you pay for Gamma, so there's a free option, but then if you pay the subscription fee, it will actually export it into whatever slide program you want, whether it's Google, PowerPoint, you name it, it'll create it within the program you need it to go to.
And I'm sure there's some everybody can do individual research whatever they want, but just a couple of the ones you all have mentioned, I'm sure people are wondering, talking about the paid subscriptions for these different programs. If you could just kind of go over that real quick, maybe with Gamma, maybe with the Chat GPT, a couple of the how much are we talking a month? Is it $100 a month? Is it $10 a month? What are we talking about?
ChatGPT was $20 a month for the pro version. Claude is a license, so you would just buy the license. It depends on what your organization kind of wants from that. Because if you want multiple people to use it, then you could do something like Claude, which is a license just on the computer, but ChatGPT would just be my login with my email address. Canva, I think that's a really big one if you're looking for marketing support. It does help with PowerPoints, not quite as well as Gamma. But I will say the fact that it does a variety of marketing tools, graphics, and things like that, and helps with your, social media calendar, et
Yeah.
cetera, which is not a strong suit for everybody, but it's absolutely necessary if you want to be able to place animals or get a lost pet home or just try to do general community outreach and education. So I think Canva is 15 bucks a month or something like that. Don't quote me on that one, but it is fairly affordable. And I know we utilize that one very heavily because it's just not our team's strong suit. What about you, Sarah?
Um, yeah, like those price points are all about the same. I think Gamma starts like their basic pro is like 9.99 a month. And then it goes up for there for how much that you want it. So all are fairly reasonable. And always keep in mind if you're a nonprofit, some of the stuff you can get subscriptions for free. Thanks, Chris.
Yeah, welcome.
Um, and sometimes it's also worth it. And like to be completely honest, sometimes I will just pay for the month and then cancel it because I know I'm not going to need like it every single month. So sometimes I'll pay to have it for a month and then I won't need it again for like 4 months and then I'll pay to have it for another month. So like you can flex some of that too. And I also saw Spencer, I
Yeah, I
think.
was going to get to if you guys have any questions in the chat, please make sure you put them in the chat. You can also unmute, come on camera. We'd be happy to see your smiling faces today. Mary Ellen did mention in the chat struggles with to use Chat GPT for work related things, including sensitive data. We all have sensitive data. She says it asks for triage map calls. It's going to know the dog bite occurred. If she asks to reword a paragraph in a report, it's going to have to read the report. How do you guys get around that kind of stuff?
So I think I know we use Chameleon, but I think we have to design our reports. Some of this is going to have to be us as humans starting to take this out. So we could design a report where I say I only want the addresses and I only want the incident like severity or something like that. So it doesn't give me the sensitive information. And it doesn't give me like anybody's personal name, no numbers, no nothing in a data set so that I can input it. But that's what I mean by not using it as a crutch. It can't do everything for us. We might still have to filter through so that we're using it safely. And that might mean working with Chameleon or PetPoint, whichever software system you're doing to create a report that has already removed the sensitive content there. Say you're doing heat maps and things like that.
Well, and sometimes too, like you can, if you're like she asks, like, what if I need help rewording a paragraph in a report? You can take out, like a lot of times I'll just put X's in, or like, even parentheses of where certain like sensitive data is, and then ask it to help. Can you please reword this
Hmm.
to sound more professional? Or like however the prompts that you want to give it, just excluding some of the sensitive information to help you rewrite the paragraph so that it sounds professional without providing it data sensitivity, right? Like,
I
so
really like that, Sarah. I think it's the parentheses. If you just put parentheses name, parentheses child,
Yeah.
parentheses, whatever that is, it'll then go work towards it for you. I am going to throw into the chat a basic prompt formula. I think that could be really helpful for everybody because a prompt is essentially what you're putting into any of these language learning models. You need to have some sort of role or context. You add in the task or goal that you want, specific details, and then you format slash tone whatever constraints there. And that's generally how you get the closest output for what you're actually wanting. So if you're wanting to design it, and I'll do this part as an explanation. Um, if you're wanting it to be in ChatGPT, Gamma, any of those, you would want to frame it or formulate it to come out with this. So I might have act as a marketing strategist, act as a county manager, act as a veterinarian, whatever that might be, um, right, etc. Be as specific as you can, include facts, numbers, whatever information is relevant without the sensitive content that we talked about. Um, and then format what tone? Is this supposed to be more conversational? Is this more of a public speaking? Is it a press release? Be careful with your press releases because a lot of that's sensitive information that you might want to take the parentheses, but it can really help to those of us that aren't PIOs and different things. It would help us design that press release to be a better speaker. I might also have my press release in mind and I might just put the situation in with very vague components of that. I have had a dog related fatality. Please ask me what you think as if you were a press reporter. Please ask me what questions you think I should answer. So
Yeah.
then I'm a little bit more prepared and put together in front of those cameras.
That's amazing. One more question that I'm actually really, really interested in too, and I know you both have utilized it, is can you talk more about the heat mapping? Is AI going to create the map, throw it into Google Maps, or is it going to create just a spreadsheet? I've seen some pretty cool stuff based on the GIS hot mapping with technology. Can you guys talk a little bit to that?
yeah, I'm gonna let Angela spearhead this one because we utilize it, but not as like she is more like
You guys saw
regularly
I
does
mentioned
this
heat
than we
mapping.
are.
Her
Yeah.
eyes just lit up, right? She's
Heat
Oh
like,
yeah.
"This is my
mapping!
jam."
It's my jam. I love it. I love there's so many different things that you could do with heat maps. And I think it gives you really good information without going into details of an area. I think it helps us with community education because if I design a heat map, it doesn't go into personal addresses, but it definitely shows where our problem areas are. And it kind of puts things in perspective to those that don't even work in animal control.
What software are you
So
utilizing for that, Angela?
I actually ChatGPT has worked out really
ChatGPT.
well. Dana has had another one. Dana, if you want to throw it into the chat, I think you had another one that was really good at
I've
designing.
used. I think Dana is the same one. I've used Power BI before, and Power BI for data points is really good. I know it is a little bit more expensive compared to other AIs. We've utilized it at the county level before, but yeah, the hot mapping is to Marielle. I think it was Mary Ellen's question above. Yeah, you're giving that data to that, but you're not getting an address out of it. It's a dot on the map. I love the way you worded that, Angela. It's
Right. And
protecting
some
that
of it
data.
too is more like zip codes. Like you don't necessarily have to provide the address, more of the zip code.
Yep.
And it will, to answer Tim's question, it does actually create the map for you too. And it can be really helpful in that. And so like you don't have to do completely sensitive information. It can be call type and the zip code, and you upload that into one of those for it to give you your heat map.
Yeah, so I've done it for things like bite situations. From there, I had to evaluate trends. And so I saw that from our data, we had the majority, at least in the last year, bite incidents to 12-year-old boys. So if I was trying to go out and educate the community, number one, if I'm going into that community and I'm going to the schools to try to get ahead of the problem, was high school too far? Yes. I shouldn't have done a presentation at high school. I should have done it younger.
Yeah.
So it tells me where my time is best spent, especially for those of us that don't have a lot of time on our hands. The other great one is if you do TNR. Where are your feral cats coming in? Where are they mostly coming from? I've done targeted foster efforts. Where are the majority of my fosters coming from? Where are they most interested in fostering? How can I get resources more towards me? So think about heat mapping in such a variety of situations, but a lot of people are very visual, and it could be used not only as an educational tool, but as a strategy or a way to bolster your strategy when you're putting work and effort into one specific area.
I would also say with that too, I used it last year. We're in the process, this is from like a leadership perspective, right? So we're in the process of looking at what it would take to have a new building, those costs. Well, the favorite thing that all my elected officials love to talk about is where is this new shelter going to be? Right? Like they all have an idea, they all have a piece of land, everybody has an opinion about where it should go. And ironically, a lot of the elected officials wanted it to go in the South County because, like, there's just not a lot of services being provided down there. So I used a heat map of all of our intakes and service calls and did a heat map of where the majority of our calls are and basically said, hey, it makes absolutely no operational sense to have it in the area of the county that you are all suggesting to happen when 60% of all of my intake and calls are in this specific area. This is where we need to make sure that our shelter is located for efficiency purposes and even operational costs. Like to think like, hey, every call that we have to do, if we have to leave South County, it's a 30-minute drive to where 60% of all of our calls are located. And so it really like it ixnayed that argument real quick about where the shelter should be located.
That's incredible. What should people not be using AI for? We already talked about animals dying. We already talked about court cases. I have a feeling some people on this call are going to be like, oh my gosh, yes, this is amazing. I'm going to start using AI for everything. What's your number one caution?
You know what's been very viral lately? And I really hope nobody has done this. People getting let go by an AI automated video.
Oh,
Do not let AI let go your staff or terminate your staff. Um, that's been going viral on social media. So
not cool.
don't be that person. I know it's, especially if you're in leadership, I know if it's in management, it's one of the hardest things you'll ever have to do if you've had to do it. Don't let AI be your crutch on some of the difficult things. Some of the things we do have to do, while it removes any bias or anything to that extent, it also removes empathy. It
Mhm.
removes the human factor in the situation. And that experience for that person is going to go across your community or it's going to go viral. So
Yeah.
you don't want something like that to happen. I would say another one not to do, and I would say just not more in the broad thinking terms, the productivity paradox. That's kind of what you talked about before, Spencer, which is you could start relying on it so much that you spent an hour trying to automate something or try to
Yeah.
draft something that you could have done yourself in 15 minutes.
Yep.
So don't start overly relying on it. You're not actually being that productive at a certain point.
Yeah.
So
You're overcomplicating it. And Mary Ellen
there you
brings up
go.
a good point in the chat.
Productivity paradox is what that's kind of.
I love that. I've never heard that phrase before. I love
Mhm.
that. Mary Ellen brings up a good one, and much similar to the letting people go is the AI job interview too. I read an article recently about how there's this weird thing happening where there's a lot of people that can't find jobs, and there's a lot of places that can't hire anybody, and it's because everybody's having AI write their resumes and cover letters, and AI is reviewing all the resumes and cover letters, and nobody's getting interviews because of it. And I feel like there's such correct me if I'm wrong, I feel like there's still such the human aspect to the hiring process and getting people under team.
Mhm. Yeah, I think there's limitations to everything, right? It's it's a helpful tool to have in your toolbox, but it's not something that can do everything for you. And their AI is not to the point where it is emotionally intelligent, where it can read a room, where it understands like how you as a human being should broach something. But it's great at providing you the data in a clear, unemotional fashion. But
Yeah.
the issue is we are emotional animals. And so there is a human component that we always have to consider. And so I always love to remind people it is a great tool and we should be utilizing it in animal welfare, but we should not be letting it do everything at this point. But it can help a lot. And Dana, if you want to throw up at this point our resource slide, um, but there are lots of different things for you guys to try out. I mean, Gemini is great for photos. I know Kristen Hassan has been using it. Like you can take a photo of a dog in a kennel and it removes the bars. So you have a great photo of a dog to post on your website for adoption or a lost and found page. And so there are wonderful tools out there that we can be utilizing to help us do our jobs, but it's never going to do all of the work for us.
I think a really cool one is if you're interested in ongoing learning, like you said, Kristen Hassan has a great one that's specific to animal welfare professionals. I think in general, listening to good podcasts, if you're one of those officers in the truck and you just have a podcast going, it could just help you understand a little bit deeper. There's a lot of video learning, YouTube, things like that. But MIT Sloan has AI for executives available, and I think that's free actually. So there's a lot of resources out there if this is something that you want to dive into. And I think what we're saying is you really should dive into it. If you start now, you're going to get left behind. We saw the power of social media. We see the power of changing technology. When everybody starts performing at this level very efficiently, very effective, analyzing data that would have taken you days to do, we don't want you guys to be left behind. We want you to use it in the right ways and in the ways that amplify your work.
This isn't Beanie Babies and fidget spinners. It's not just going to go away, right? It's here.
This is
It's here to
no,
stay.
and it's only going to get
It's here
further
to stay.
probably. I'm going to post this quote that this is what AI says about itself. Um, this is AI, where your new coworker never sleeps, doesn't complain, and they type 100 times faster than you.
I love that.
So, I mean, it talks about being a really good intern. It does not augment your current set, it augments, it doesn't take away. So I think really recognizing the power that it can have, we need you guys to jump on board so that we could do the work we could do 10 times the impact.
That's incredible. Thank you, Angela. Thank you, Sarah. Any other questions? Anybody would come off mute? Answer in the chat. We'll be happy. Got 2 minutes left. If not, thank you, Dana, for providing all those amazing resources. Jerica for setting this up. Thank you, Sarah. Thank you, Angela, for the time that you all put into this. This is something that I know this is not going to be the end of this conversation. This is just the beginning, and I know NACA is going to be working hard to implement AI in a lot of our presentations. So thank you, everyone that joined us from around the world: Brazil, Canada, Hawaii, everybody that joined us today. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Sarah. Thank you, Angela. If you guys want to put real quick your emails just in the chat, if anybody wants to, I know you had mentioned to a couple people you'd like to chat. If you could just put your emails in there, and if anybody wants to reach out, please feel free to reach out to Sarah and or Angela directly, or myself. You can reach out as well.
And just a reminder, we'll be sending out the list of resources. So if you guys didn't get a chance to screenshot that or anything, please know we will send out the list of resources so you guys have it.
Thank you for that. Thank you, Dana, for sending that out. Thank you again, one last time to Sarah and for Angela for everything that you all provided. And one last thank you to all of you. You're taking time out of the middle of your week to attend this. The industry is really, really challenging right now. And thank you all for taking the opportunity to do a little something to make yourselves and your departments better. So thank you, everybody. And if you need anything, please feel free to reach out. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.